Germany. A nation that in the 20th century was hell-bent on violently subjugating the entire world, but in the 21st century is hell-bent on being subjugated by a religion that's hell-bent on violently subjugating the entire world. Apparently, the proper German method of demonstrating remorse for the Holocaust is to submit to an ideology that hates Jews even more. Adolf Hitler once lamented, "It's been our misfortune to have the wrong religion. Why didn't we have the religion of the Japanese, who regard sacrifice for the fatherland as the highest good? The Mohammedan religion, too, would have been more compatible to us than Christianity. Why did it have to be Christianity with its meekness and flabbiness?" Hitler regarded Nordic Europeans as genetically superior to other groups. Well then, who should rule the world? Who should lead humanity into the future? Nordic people? There was just one problem: Christianity. Hitler understood that you can take a bunch of young Christians and fill their heads with racist propaganda and convince them to go out and kill for you. That was the point of the Hitlerjugend, the Hitler Youth, a kind of Boy Scouts for Nazi brainwashing. But no matter how much you indoctrinated these young Christians, there would always be those who took Christianity somewhat seriously, and who would therefore have commands like love your enemies, and be at peace with all men, and let all that you do be done in love, rattling around in their heads, confusing them. The result would be conflicted soldiers, soldiers who might obey orders, but who wouldn't really want to. Christianity was thus a kind of retrograde force, holding the master race back from realizing its full potential. But if the master race could somehow adopt a religion that encourages violence, that promotes cruelty, that demands global domination, what could possibly stop the German war machine? Of course, Germany never got the religion Hitler wanted. Until now. If you'd like to familiarize yourself with the many ways the German government is ramming Hitler's dream religion down the throats of German citizens, all you need to do is pay attention to the news. In this video, we'll look at one example. Last year, Germany approved a bill that would supposedly curb online hate crimes and fake news. The Associated Press reported, Germany's cabinet on Wednesday approved a new bill that punishes social networking sites if they fail to swiftly remove illegal content such as hate speech or defamatory fake news. Chancellor Angela Merkel's cabinet agreed on rules that would impose fines of up to 50 million euros, $53.4 million, on Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms. German Justice Minister Heiko Maas said that the companies offering such online platforms are responsible for removing hateful content. He said the new bill would not restrict the freedom of expression, but intervene only when criminal hatred or intentionally false news are posted. Notice the German government assured us that the bill wouldn't be used to restrict freedom of expression, but only to restrict criminal hate speech. But if you're like me when you read about new hate speech laws, you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the laws will be used to suppress criticism of Islam, because that's their actual purpose. Politicians can't say that the purpose of these laws is to suppress criticism of a particular ideology, since that would raise too many eyebrows, so they have to claim that they're only trying to block hate speech, until the laws get passed, at which time the politicians use the laws to block criticism of Islam. If you don't believe me, check out a message I recently got from YouTube. Hello. We received a legal complaint concerning your video, Muhammad was a sex addict. Fun Islamic fact number 8. Upon review, your content will not be visible on the German YouTube country site in accordance with German law concerning hate speech or political extremism. YouTube restricts content where necessary to comply with local laws. For more information, please review our Help Center article concerning the German Network Enforcement Act. The YouTube team. So, whatever the German government means by hate speech, it includes my video. Muhammad was a sex addict, right? Since that video happens to be pretty short, let's go ahead and watch the entire video so that we can understand what constitutes criminal hate speech according to the modern, Western, freedom of expression loving government of Germany.
Welcome to Fun Islamic Facts, where I share fun facts about Muhammad and the Quran whenever jihadis go on a killing spree. Sahih al-Bukhari, number 5068. Narrated Anas, the Prophet used to go round, have sexual relations with all his wives in one night, and he had 9 wives. Sahih al-Bukhari, 5215. Narrated Anas bin Malik, the Prophet used to pass by, have sexual relations with all his wives in one night, and at that time he had 9 wives. Sahih al-Bukhari, number 268. Narrated Qatada, Anas bin Malik said, the Prophet used to visit all his wives in a round during the day and night, and they were 11 in number. I asked Anas, had the Prophet the strength for it? Anas replied, we used to say that the Prophet was given the strength of 30 men. And Sa'id said on the authority of Qatada that Anas had told him about 9 wives only, not 11. Notice 3 things about these passages. First, Muhammad had at least 9 wives at one time, even though Surah 4, verse 3 of the Quran limits Muslim men to 4 wives. If the Quran limits men to 4 wives, why did Muhammad have at least 9 wives at one time? Well, Muhammad received a special revelation, Surah 33, verse 50 of the Quran, giving him, and him alone, the right to break the 4-wife limit. How convenient. Second, Muhammad would have sex with at least 9 women and girls in one day, even though he was more than 50 years old. Today, we would call him a sex addict. Isn't it interesting that a sex addict who claimed to be a prophet conveniently received a revelation giving him more sexual partners than anyone else? Third, how did Muhammad's followers know that he was having sex with all of his wives in one day? How did they know he wasn't simply chatting with his wives? It seems that the Prophet of Islam must have been bragging about all the sex he was having, so much so that his followers could in turn brag about him having the sexual strength of 30 men. Our Muslim friends tell us that Islam is a religion of modesty. A closer look shows that Islam is a religion whose supreme role model was a sex addict who built a religion around his sexual desires and constantly bragged about his sexual exploits with women, a prepubescent girl, and his slave girls. So much for modesty.
Did you catch the criminal hate speech? I quoted 3 Muslim sources declaring that Muhammad would have sex with 9 women and girls in a single day. Is it hate speech to quote Muslim sources? I pointed out that while the Quran limits Muslim men to 4 wives at one time, Muhammad's revelations allowed him to exceed the 4-wife limit. Is it hate speech to draw attention to hypocrisy? I noted that if we heard about a 50-plus-year-old man having sex with 9 women and girls a day in our time, we would call that man a sex addict. Is it hate speech to state what we would call someone in our time? Finally, I inferred that since Muhammad's followers knew that he was having sex with all of these women and girls rather than simply visiting them, Muhammad must have been telling his followers what he was doing. Is it hate speech to draw a conclusion based on evidence? So, whether you agree with me or not, whether you're liberal or conservative, whether you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim, is there anything in my video that should be treated by a modern Western government as criminal hate speech? Of course not. And yet the government of Germany filed a legal complaint demanding that YouTube remove my video for violating German laws concerning hate speech and political extremism. How is the German law, which German officials promised wouldn't be used to restrict freedom of expression, actually being used? It's being used to restrict freedom of expression, namely the freedom to criticize Muhammad. This means that the German government is actively and deliberately shielding Muhammad and Islam from criticism. Muslim preachers are working day and night to show Germans that Islam is the truth, that Muhammad was the greatest man who ever lived, that the Quran is the perfect word of Allah. These preachers have the full blessing of German leaders. But if you respond to the claims of these Muslim preachers, if you say that Islam is not the truth, or that Muhammad was not the greatest man who ever lived, or that the Quran is not the perfect word of Allah, the German government will now intervene and silence you. The result of this government-enforced Islamic indoctrination of the German people will be the continuous expansion of Islam in Germany, until the nation reaches a kind of tipping point where the government no longer has to lie about the purpose of its laws because critics can simply be executed by the Sharia Schutzstaffel for violating Islamic blasphemy laws. So, forcing Germans to adopt a religious system that will eventually transform them into some of the most epic Allahu Akbar shouting, infidel terrorizing, captive raping, apostate beheading, female genital mutilating, honor-killing, child bride marrying, martyrdom-seeking death machines the world has ever seen, Hitler would be pleased. He would be very pleased. Now, to you Germans who are watching, keep in mind that the clock is ticking in more ways than one. When jihadis find out that your leaders are enforcing Sharia blasphemy laws, they'll smell weakness and they'll demand more submission. And there's no way your leaders aren't going to back down like the sniveling cowards they are. So I'd say you're about a generation away from singing Deutschland, Deutschland unter Islam. In the meantime, the clock is ticking on the information that's available to you. The 21st century version of book burning is blocking websites. And since no one has ever burned books like German leaders, we can only assume that they'll be the masters of blocking websites as well. It goes without saying that the clock is ticking on watching this video. It already contains a video that the German government has concluded is too much for you Germans to see. Plus, I added a bunch of information that you're not allowed to hear. So watch it quickly and share it with your friends. The translation feature is on. On a side note, if German leaders blocked Muhammad was a sex addict, there's no way they're not going to block our groundbreaking series, Islamicize Me. So be sure to click on the playlist before the entire series is banned by fascist politicians who don't wear swastikas on their arms, but clearly have them tattooed on their hearts, right next to the tiny little mustaches they're hiding.